Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And, yesterday we went off a bit. We got the news of the Lord Vader Lightspeed bundle, and before that was, the news about pirates being in the raid, and just the ridiculousness that was. And, I've cooled down a little bit. We're trying to catch up. We're trying to just work our way through a lot of stuff. But I feel like I want to explain why I think pirates are going to be in the raid with some data backing it up, because I think we all friggin' know why. But it comes down to the way it's communicated. And I think a lot of this stems back to the way Capital Games seems to be dispersing information to us. And so I want to kind of just touch on that a little bit, and then what you as a player, how to react to this news. Because this is really, really dangerous ground to be on, and a slippery slope for CG to start with. The first time that we ever had content in this game where there was something that was kind of locked was the Nightfall era battle, where we got this, it was in the game, but we couldn't play the higher tiers with just Oppo. We needed to get other clone troopers to complete that. And it's kind of similar with the raid. There's a potential that you can't get the highest crate without pirates, and that's kind of a problem. I hope that's not the case, but this is where communication could happen to tell us, no, that isn't, they're going to be a 6 faction, or, and I'll talk about how I wish they would have communicated it, and then talk about your plan. I want to try to unpack this information for you guys in a way that wasn't just me screaming at the, computer the whole time. So let's give a shout out to our channel members for their continued support. If you're ever interested, link below, along with a link to our Discord. I really appreciate you guys just keeping the faith, being a part of the Fat family. I really can't always put into words how blessed I feel to have this platform that I get to talk to you guys about a game that I love. So appreciate you all. Let's get into our video, and let's, break this down with maybe a little bit of a cooler mind than we had the other day. Alright, so why pirates in the raid? Why are pirates in the raid? Smee, come on. Smee is owned by Peter Pan, right? I think it's a very, SM33 is a great reference to Smee from, Peter Pan, who's one of the pirates, and Captain Hook's, he's like Captain Hook's right-hand man, which is funny because Captain Hook, he's got a hook for a hand. Anyway, what I do want to say is I hope they throw us a bone and at least, let us use Sana, Hondo, and Enfys Nest, who also have the pirate tag in this raid. But, the safe bet will be that it's the Skeleton Crew, right? I think that, the Skeleton Crew is going to be the safe bet for the characters in the raid. So I don't want you to, start building these characters, and thinking, yeah, I'm good, I've got the pirates. I think it's going to be the Skeleton Crew. I do hope they throw us a bone. But I want to share a little bit of my frustration on, the communication. And this is where I think, it felt a little bit like, CG was taking, kind of a lesson from Luthen, and sort of telling you only what you need to hear, or only what they want you to hear. Where we got the kit reveal for Scorch yesterday, right? And this was posted to the forums, right? Whereas the kit reveal for Smee was posted to the EA website. And what's very different about these is that, the news shared here is kind of things we all knew, right? We all knew most of this stuff, right? Whereas this FAQ, look at this. What will pirates be used for? They will be an allowed faction in the upcoming raid. While most will not be in the game upon the raid's launch, they will show up fashionably late to swoop in and take advantage of the chaos. That is not a line that I feel should be a part of an FAQ for a character. That, to me, is a post in and of itself, with an explanation, with some way to tell us, hey, here's why. So if I was Capital Games, and why I think pirates are here, obviously, it's all having to do with money. Duh. But here's kind of the data just to prove it. So I went to swago.gg and I pulled the Relic player data. And what's interesting is when I had pulled it, you see they showed you up to Relic 9. I have some hidden, but they show you up to Relic 9. Now it's showing you up to Relic 7, and then what's below that, right? So when you go to Oppo, just for the sake of argument here, there's 445,000 Oppos in the game. That kind of makes sense based on the number of players. So anyway, with that said, when we look at the, whoops, undo that. Why is this hidden? Don't, where's my unhide column? Because there should be a total column here. There we go. There's my total. Sorry. So when you look at the data, the biggest one here is Hunter. Hunter has 11,927 relics at the time that I downloaded this. It was yesterday. Whereas Oppo is 11,747, which when you think about that, the Oppo number is a lot more jarring because he's not farmable yet. He still isn't even on a node, where Hunter has been on a node for a little bit and is even like a Cantina node, so he's very easy to obtain. Omega, 10,000, she's been farmable the longest. And then Batcher for the Bad Batch, 6,800. So then Oppo, there's still more of him than there are Omega. Then there's 9,000 CX2. And then for Disguised Clone Trooper, who has not, has been in the game a week, 6969. Giggity giggity. Ooh, right. I had to throw that in there. But just look at the difference where, like, Batcher's on a node and there's still not as many Relic Batchers as there are Disguised Clone Troopers. The community kind of reacted. We kind of put our foot down when they told us, yeah, Bad Batch isn't leading towards a Legendary, not really going to be needed for anything. That was what when Bad Batch was announced, that's what we were told. And so as a community, we kind of reacted and we're like, all right, foot off the brakes. We're not going to go crazy with this. And so I think Pirates being allowed in the raid is their way of saying we need to capitalize and make sure that we make money, because nobody's going to spend on this faction if they can't use them in the next raid. How you can spin this and communicate that to us without blatantly saying we need to make money is we saw the data from the Bad Batch versus the Dark Side Clone Troopers, and the response was very different. While neither led towards a legendary, with Clone Troopers leading towards a legendary and having a purpose in the raid, while when the Bad Batch were first released, that was not the intention. We saw that the community prefers when characters lead to something, when they have a purpose. And so while not cinematically involved in the Order 66 timeline in the Nightfall era, we want Pirates to be included in the raid so players feel that investing in them is a good decision for their roster and gives them freedom over working on characters that they might love from the Star Wars universe. Right there, I just told you we need you to spend on these characters without telling you that. But that's communication. That would be good communication for us, just to kind of own up. I think we all this is my big thing, right? My biggest problem with communication from Capital Games is that it's always obvious what their reasoning is, and they never tell us. We know you need to make money. Can you just tell us that and we can move on with life? So that's, again, the data that I'm showing, and this leads into, how do you move forward from here, right? Because this could potentially become a trend that we see a lot more. I mean, go into the game here and look at the Nightfall era battle. When this was first launched, you could not do the later tiers with just Oppo. You needed to have other Clone Troopers, as we came to find out that even with just CX2, it's a little bit more challenging. And with Disguised Clone Trooper, you really are going to need the full team to get through this easily. And that's kind of a scary thought, because this raid could be a similar situation where you might be able to play through the raid, but to get the max score could be a lot more challenging if you don't have this pirate faction. So there's just some, it's a slippery slope for me, right? And it's, going forward now, I think this does change the way we need to look at factions, particularly for pirates now. This is kind of all right, maybe you're going to consider it. But for the Bad Batch, I hope you got your drops. I hope you got your drops in while you were farming them. Because when Rabid Beaver and I had done our collaboration together, we were like, this is the free-to-play friendly team. That was what he had said. This is your free-to-play team. If you're free-to-play, you go after the Bad Batch. That's not enough for me anymore. With this news, I'm going to tell you with this news, and then obviously seeing their performance, but I'm going to tell you that I think the clones are now more important than ever. I think this Tarkin Darkside clone team is going to be more important than ever, and I feel like you're going to want to have them because without these guys, there's a chance that this raid could be significantly harder. Now, we don't truthfully, I'm speculating a lot, but that's because we don't get the communication is, subpar. And that's not a knock at, let's be very clear, we're a pro Meathead channel. That's not a knock at Meathead. Meathead is only allowed to communicate with us what he's told. And I am sure for his sanity, it would be easier if he could tell us more, right? Like the poor guy gets to a server and just is probably flooded with, questions. Like that's what I would do if I saw him, and I would feel bad. I wouldn't I don't need to know your real name. I just want you to tell me like what's happening, right? And that's awful to say, but that's, if I ever do talk to Meathead, I will, not try to ask him personal questions or something, but I know I will fail. But I think for the future of this game, you need to start looking at some of these teams and recognize that, this is free-to-play friendly. It's farmable long enough in advance of a raid that, like, Bad Batch is for me, went from all right, you're like a good person for doing this to, it's a necessity. And now the clones are more important than ever because the next two teams are going to be even more challenging to obtain than they were, right? I thought that the clones and the Bad Bat and the Jedi Vanguard would kind of be your whale food for the raid. I think clones have to fit in that conversation of a lot more free-to-play friendly than the Vanguards and the Pirates will be. Especially seeing how Tarkin's rework is performing and seeing how the clones are performing already with Lord Vader, who they just released a Lightspeed bundle for, which, this is like good PR for them, which they desperately need. Because I do think that was part of some of the players' frustrations with these new clones is, I'm so far away from Lord Vader, what does it matter? Well, now here you go. Some Lightspeed bundles to kind of help you along that journey, right? So moving forward, here's what I will encourage you to do. Number one, change your definition of free-to-play friendly. Free-to-play friendly means you've got time to farm it in, that you can potentially get this in enough time before, the start of a raid or, within the first couple of weeks of a new raid and not have expended all of your resources. And a team that is not just good for the raid, but will be good outside of it as well, which I think the Darkside clones, obviously that's the case. Again, I just want to reiterate, I really just want better communication from Capital Games, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that in another video where I just feel like every time it comes to communication, it's just there's a failure somewhere. And again, that's not at Meathead. That is at the people who, tell him what he's allowed to say. If you're a player now, I don't want you to think that this is your time to, close down the game and walk away. There's a lot of stuff coming. There's a lot of content happening. So you can't say the game is ending when there's still a lot of new content, when they're still pouring resources into this game. So I don't want you guys to think that at all. I just think they're trying to transition the game into, they've got to generate new ways to make money, obviously. But I also think that they're trying to transition the game to be a bit more, again, get you to, one of my officers, Jay Smith, he's very spot on with it, where he's like, they want you to chase a little bit more. But I do think they have made that chase a lot easier with some of these updates, which, again, that's probably another topic for another video. So, if you're still watching now, you'll get this news here. Otherwise, you'll hear it in Discord. I will be on a vacation for a week. Be going with my family on a vacation. So, I probably won't be posting regularly. I hope to get at least a video or two out, but we'll have to wait and see how that works. Just kind of depends on how the week's going. But I really appreciate all of you guys. I hope this video just helps kind of put some, shed some light on things, gives you a new perspective. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.